Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast, Beyond the Shadows, Overcoming Tragedy. I know it's been a minute since me and Joe have been on here. Actually, a long minute, but pretty good reason for it, because once we had recorded a specific episode about what happened back in 2009 with me and my ex-girlfriend, Jenny Kazemi, Netflix got in contact with us, the producers at Untold, and they shot me an email and asked if I wanted to come on and be a part of the documentary. So once I had agreed, it was agreed between myself and them that I would kind of keep that on a hush and not talk about it until it was actually released. So here we are back again, and now that it's been released, me and Joe are here to talk about it and discuss how we feel about how everything was portrayed and how they did with the documentary. I've seen it. I know Joe's seen it. He actually seen it recently. So with that being said, Joe, after you watched it, give a real raw response about how you felt about everything being handled the way that it was and how they portrayed the story based on your judgment and being very close to the situation and knowing a lot of these personal details and being a very close friend of mine. What is your opinion about the documentary?
Yeah. See, look, we talked about this the other day, right? When I hit you up.
Yeah.
And when I first turned on Netflix, I was like excited because first off, I'm a true crime fan. You know, I love true crime. So when I first click on Netflix, I see the picture of, and the header of the Untold story of the murder of Air McNair, or whatever it's called. But it's like
Yeah.
some bloody shoes, right? It's like
Right.
bloody shoes on the picture. So I'm thinking it's gonna be the best true crime story that I know, like personally of. And it kind of took me watching the whole documentary. It kind of like it didn't set right. The story ended, and it ended not right, first off, and it was too many ups and downs in the documentary itself.
Kind of like
So
there was a lot of back and forth with,
it was
in
too
my
too
opinion,
much
yeah, it
back and
was
forth.
right. It would jump to like his life, his background, and then right back in to the situation that occurred in 2009 and their murders and stuff. And it was a little all over the board to me too. I see what you're saying.
Well, I mean, the way they started the documentary off was intense. It was the most intense intro to a document. It was so good. It was the best intro for something like this. And they started the documentary off with a phone call, right, from Gaddy,
Robert
his
Gaddy, yeah.
friend. Yeah, his friend that called the police officers. That they say he called the police officers once he got to the condo after the friend Wayne Neely or whoever discovered what happened. And they had Nashville in the background and all the fans and stuff there, and it looked like it was gonna be covering this story and
The
getting down to the
particular
bottom
situation. Yeah. It seemed
of.
like the story was going to be what the title says it was going to be about. That's
Yes,
what kind of
when I
threw me
sat
off.
down, I'm like, we're finally about to get the details of what happened about this whole story, and everything's about to
Right.
finally come to light. So
Right.
when the documentary started like that, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Then after a couple of minutes of showing the phone call and the condo, it goes to Jeff Fisher, and I'm like,
Right.
it
Yeah.
like the first 2 or 3 minutes, it was intense, and then it goes to Jeff Fisher, and now Jeff Fisher is telling his story about how he became a coach and how he was in the NFL and everything. I
Right.
was so lost, bro. Like,
Yeah, when I saw that part, I ain't gonna lie. I'm like, why are they telling Jeff Fisher's backstory? What is that relevant to the story? I mean, I guess it was a little bit of a gap filler. Honestly, I get it, but if you're gonna have those portions, I mean, at least make sure you're covering, in my opinion, the main reason why a lot of the people tuned in and watched this. I'm gonna just be honest. I mean, it's the main reason why I agreed to be a part of it, because I thought that that's what we were going to be covering. You know what I mean? So yeah. So all in all, man, how'd you feel about it? If you could sum it up with like how they leave you feeling when it was over?
Well, I mean, it was just when it was over, it just left me feeling like we needed some more. I mean, we needed some more, and the story wasn't told right. I mean, and like right after that had happened, right after they talked about Jeff Fisher's story, they went back into, I believe, Wayne Neely. They introduced us to Wayne Neely, and yeah, and then they go on to talk about how he went into the condo and he thought it was two people sleeping, and then
That's wild.
yeah, it's like, okay, we go from intense intro to Jeff Fisher's story that goes into Steve McNair's college football career, then back to McNeely walking to the condo and thinking two people are sleeping. And I'm trying to put it together because how do you walk into a condo, right? First off, what I'm trying to find out is before they even did this documentary years ago, we all thought this was Steve's condo. So what is this random dude walking into the condo? You know, if you don't
What is
know,
his relevance? Like, who is he for real?
right?
Like, what? Like, why is nobody answering these questions, man? Like, who is this dude to Steve? How did they meet? Why do they co-own a condo together? Why is that not asked? Why
And
is that not asked, and why is it not answered? Don't
the
make no
bigger
sense to me.
question is, why do you? This is a condo downtown. You walk into a house and you look over and you think two people are sleeping, and the way the crime, the way they
Bruh, come on.
said that it was, so you see one person sleep on the couch and then one person on the floor. So people just
Bro,
sleeping on floors.
nah. The way this was explained to me is this guy walks in and he apparently thinks that they're sleeping, goes into the kitchen, grabs a beer, drinks it. I don't know how many minutes go by before he comes back in and discovers this horrific scene in his own living room of the condo that he co-owns. Bro, how in the world do you walk into your own condo that has white walls, mind you, and not realize that there's blood everywhere? You're lying. You're lying about everything. Just be real, man. And why is nobody seeing this? Why is nobody talking about the fact that that's a clear-cut lie? It makes no sense, bro.
Well, I mean it don't. And then from there, they went on to back to Gaddy in the interrogation room with the detectives, and they was talking to him. That's why I say this documentary got a bunch of ups and downs that was confusing me. So it went from that, then it went over to Gaddy in the room talking to the detectives.
Yeah.
And when I was telling you, you know, we talked the other day, I was telling you about it was a particular word that I heard in that room that a lot of people, because I watched it with a couple of people like last week or sometime, and they didn't even catch the word. But I caught the word when he was in the room, and he called the condo a cat house, and
And he said
nobody
it.
really,
He said that so casually too. Like
yeah,
that's what it was just already known as
like
by
I
everybody.
don't have nothing to do with that little cat house. What?
Right. And then they
What
just
is a
went
cat
on
house?
and didn't put no emphasis on that. He just called that place a cat house, and everybody knows what that means. It's like, and then here we
So
go.
I mean,
Let's
for
dive
the
right back into the backstory of somebody else. It's like what,
so what? So to the people that don't know what a cat house is because they didn't explain it, you had to explain it a little bit to me because I'm like, what? So what?
bro? A cat house is a place that clearly you have on the side so that you can do your dirty work on the side, specifically if you're already in a relationship or married. That's what it is. It's a hookup spot that you literally go there to hook up with no strings attached. And I mean, he called that place that real quick and real easy because it's probably what it was referred to between them and the people that they knew that used it.
That's wild. So that's a very important thing because at that point to me, it's not just Steve McNair's condo. It's basically maybe Steve is just the host, and people just hit him up whenever they want to go there. That's probably
Right.
why he said when he got there, or when they were in there, they didn't really know who it was over there. They didn't know who. And I'm like, how you don't know who if this is a condo that you share with somebody else? But
Right.
and then after Wayne Neely found them in there like that, he didn't really. I didn't see anywhere in there where he was panicking or whatever. I guess he just casually called Gaddy up
Gaddy.
and
Why? Why? That question right there. Why was that not asked? Why was
yeah,
that not a huge part? That confused me right there. Why didn't you call the police immediately? I don't know anybody in their right mind that would walk into a scenario like that, especially in their own home, and then say, I know, I'm going to call a friend of mine. Nah, bro. Especially if it's somebody that you know and that you've been friends with, because obviously they were friends. If they're friends, how in the world are you just going to. Now, I'm going to call up somebody that we both know. I'm not going to call the cops yet. There's one explanation, bro. And the fact that that isn't more emphasis put on that scenario right there, there's one explanation. It's because you were scared to call the cops because you knew that there was more to the situation and you needed to figure things out before you actually called them. There's no other explanation. You don't call a friend when you walk into a tragedy like that. That's
yeah.
ignorant.
And then you waited. So what did you do in the meantime? Were you just continuing to drink your beer, or bro? If I walked in and seen something like that, I am running. I'm running probably down the street. I'm gonna be. They gonna probably have to calm me down. Somebody else probably gonna be calling 911 because I'm
Bro,
probably gonna be knocking
I'm
on the doors of
freaking
people.
out. I am freaking out and I'm calling the cops immediately. And I'm making sure I'm not touching anything. I'm making sure that like I can't be cuz bro, the thought process that he had to be having going on, you are the person that discovers this. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be asking you all the questions up front before they ask anybody anything because you found them. Bro, come on.
Yeah,
Why
but
wasn't there more put on that in the documentary? I don't
but
understand it.
another thing I was confused about. Gaddy talking about he come into the condo and he's clutching his gun. Like, bro, your partner's already been there an hour. If somebody was in there, he would have already been off. What are you
Right,
clutching your
bro.
gun for?
Yeah.
Like, make it make sense. He said, I grabbed
Right.
my gun. It's wild, bro. It's why it's why like the documentary to me was so confusing. They put these pieces and parts. Then we go from that, and then we go back to Steve McNair's career.
Right.
I'm like, what do you think about this?
Well,
I mean,
now,
when you was
okay, all right,
watching it,
all right. I do want to say though, because like I've talked to a lot of my friends, family, and about this since this came out, and I mean a lot of people got mixed feelings about it. Untold, if you're not familiar with the docu series that they have on Netflix, they cover athletes and they cover their lives. Now I have talked to the producers about this. I talked one on one about the director and the direction that they wanted to go with it. And there are some conflicted, you know, emotions in my reaction to the documentary itself as far as the direction that I thought we were going to be going with it. But at the same time, I have a lot more of an understanding to the documentary because I knew the direction that they were going to be going with it up front. The documentary is about McNair. It's about his life and obviously about his tragic death. And regardless of anything, regardless of, no matter which way you look at it, which is why it's another understandable, situation when it comes to the people that were close to McNair to have a specific stance on the situation, such as what Jeff Fisher does, where he's like, talking about, you know, there's a lot of questionable details and everything like that. But For him, he's like, we just got to let it go. Now, here's the thing. The difference is to them, to everyone on his side of things, they were close to McNair, and no matter the input, no matter the outcome, he was still murdered. Whoever did it or whatever questionable details surrounding it doesn't matter because he's still gone and he was still murdered. So, yeah, they're ready to put it behind them. They've lost their loved one, they've grieved, and they don't want to continue on with that for the rest of their lives. And I understand where they take the defense of his children and everything, because on their side, their heart's been broken because they lost their loved one. And no matter which way you change the details, he was still murdered and he's still gone. So I get that. But with the documentary itself, it was just like all the other documentaries that they've done about athletes. It's pertaining to that athlete, their backstory, their life, and in some cases, such as this one, their death and what led to that. Well, so I get that. I understand that. But what threw me off is the title. It's literally called The Murder of Air McNair. So you would think that there's going to be a lot more emphasis put on the actual murder itself because the title says so. And then not only that, but I mean, myself partaking in this documentary, I went and I spent like 8 hours or more with them. And I did an 8-hour or more long interview with them. The portion that I covered in all of these questions that I answered were pertaining to the murder and Jenny and the details that I knew surrounding the days leading up to it. All of this was left out. Every bit of this was left out. And then when I watched the documentary, which I didn't get around to watching it until much later, because honestly, I mentally and emotionally wasn't really ready to see a lot of the stuff that was included in it. Like the forensic evidence, the pictures and stuff that's opening really, really deep wounds that I've spent so long trying to heal, but when I did get around to watching it, I had already been told by a lot of my family that, they didn't really put a lot of emphasis on mine and Jenny's relationship. And I'm like, well, that's cool because it's more about McNair and everything. And they're like, well, to be real, I mean, they kind of portrayed you as if you were just this random Titans fan that was like, that just so happened to date Jenny. And I was like, okay. Yeah.
That's why I say that the documentary was just, I think it's an order and how you should do things. And I've seen it done right on plenty other, documentaries, but you don't, even if they was going to tell the story of Steve McNair and as the person before the murder, you don't chop it up like that. And like I say, I mean, I've seen some of their Untold stuff, like what you're talking about, and they did do a great job on some of the other ones.
Oh man, they're golden. Most of their documentaries are phenomenal.
Yeah, but just in this one, you should have started the documentary talking about his life. You know what I mean? You could go back to his childhood and then go up to his college, high school, and then a football career, Super Bowl, and then this is what happened. And this is what happened after all of that. But it was just too much going. It was like yo-yo, and it was going back and forth. That's why I say it was literally like ups and downs, and it probably made the viewer, just the viewer like me that's on the outside, that's just looking at it, that wasn't there like you, that spent 8 hours there thinking that you're going to be focusing more on this untold story that was attached close to you, and you being a part of it. And even that, like, they put you in, when we first saw you, they mentioned you as this boyfriend. They put you into
bro. It says Titans fan above my name. I'm like,
when we first saw you, you was in the room with the detectives, and you was just this random boyfriend. And then when we next time we saw you, it's like 20 years later, and you're a father, and you sit on the couch as a Titans fan. Like, they look like two different people. Like
I
you
look
put two
like
different people in front of me.
the
Like
dad of the guy in the film from the.
when you, bro, when you like when you came in originally, I thought they was okay. There go Keith. He's in the room, and then I thought they was gonna switch to you, then telling your story
Yeah,
about everything that went on. But
none of that.
they went from that you been in that room back to Steve McNair's career, and then back to you. The first time we heard from you was like he was my favorite quarterback, and then they put Titans
Right.
fan
Well,
underneath
see,
your
that's
name.
another thing too. It seems like that there was a lot of emphasis put on like my in my childhood, my looking up to Steve McNair and my fanhood of him and him being my favorite quarterback of all time is kind of like that's they just want to make sure that that was said and like just to kind of big up his name a little bit more. And I'm like, but I mean, I thought I was brought on so that I could tell honestly much more about Jenny's side and defend Jenny's side of this situation. Because I mean, if anybody's familiar with me, they know I don't believe that she did it. I believe that they were both murdered, and I believe I'm pretty positive I know who by who. And I've been very vocal about this in multiple different
But
ways through
but
my music in the past to now in podcasts and open interviews and stuff.
what's crazy, what's wild is I don't want to point no fingers on who it could be or possibly. I'm not want to get into that type of area of talking, but from looking at the documentary and being a fan of documentaries in general and looking at it, it don't look like she done it. You know, it don't
Yeah,
from how
they left that wide open, but it's pretty telling by a lot of the question. I mean, they didn't put a lot of emphasis on the questionable details, but they did put enough out there to show, yeah, okay, there's enough here to see it's highly unlikely that this 20-year-old girl did this. Yeah,
so it
I
makes
see
me
what you're saying.
question like where were they going? It's like were they like one half I'm thinking like were they trying to show us the good side of like Steve McNair, and then on the other half it's like were they actually
Clear.
trying to get this case back open or something and try to get down to the bottom of what really happened. It was like they were trying to do both of them at the same time, but they didn't really want to go all the way and
Right.
hey, we need to tell the whole entire story about what happened and everything. But it was so many details in this story that is missing that's unbelievable. Like,
Well, you and I both know so many more details that were not included in this, and that's kind of what was frustrating to me because of the simple fact that I explained a lot of these details. Everything that I knew, I gave them. So they have it on tape. But somewheres along the line, someone at Netflix said, "No, we're not going to include that." I'm not sure who was responsible for that, but bro, they left out everything that I
yeah,
possibly had to offer as far as the questionable details, bro. Because there's so much that happened in the days leading up that I explained to them, and it was just left out. Wild. It's just wild to me.
yeah. And I mean, they introduced us to Jenny. They called her the unidentified woman. When
Yeah.
they first really started speaking about her, they was going in. The detectives had went to Opry Mills where she worked at, and
Right.
told, and they were talking to her coworkers and family members and all this stuff, and it almost seemed like they were trying to the coworkers and stuff was trying to make it seem like she was just scrambling for cash or something like that, and she's about to get ready to end it all. And I guess that's why they tried to look at her as the struggling mistress. You know what I mean? When
Yeah.
it's so many other parts to the it's just it's missing pieces that's surrounding all of this.
Well,
I mean, my biggest question is, right? They say that she bought a gun from Gilliam that,
uh-huh.
and I think what the place that she bought it at was Opry Mills, right?
In the parking lot,
So,
supposedly. Based on his testimony, it was in the parking lot directly out front of her job during her shift.
so when they were there, they didn't find no camera footage of this because
None.
I didn't. How
Zero.
was it? Yeah, so that's another question of mine that I be thinking about. Like, how if she bought a gun at this big, which is the biggest, the one of the greatest malls probably I've been to. You know, we traveled a lot of places, but Opera Mills is a
Yeah.
big mall. It's got cameras everywhere. How do you how do you not get footage of this gun sale that supposedly happened in that parking
Right.
lot? And you know, it was just a lot of stuff that went on with
Bro,
that.
this guy claimed to have sold her the gun. He also claimed he didn't know her name. He claimed he didn't know her at all. She just randomly approached him. And then also he said that what was it? He said a couple other things. He said that he wasn't anywhere in Nashville, I think. But what it turns out, let's ignore
Well,
what
his
he
alibi.
said because everything he was saying was complete nonsense. Because one, he said he sold her the gun. He said exactly where, but there was no video footage when there is video cameras that had the entire parking lot on camera and no evidence whatsoever, and nobody, no eyewitness at her job to ever come out and be like, yeah, she stepped out. She was always on camera and always visible during her entire shift that night. So no true evidence showing she ever left to walk out there where he said she would be. Number two, he said he didn't know her name. You don't know her name? Okay, well, how is that when you have her number and you talk to her as many times as texting her over 200 times in the
200.
days leading up?
I think they said 203.
203 times on the days leading up to their tragic deaths. But you didn't know her name and you didn't know her at all. Matter of fact, he had a conversation with her the night before on the phone, talking about where you at and this, that, and another. And then another thing is with the fact that his alibi, he ain't got one. Out of everybody that they looked at, including myself,
Well, well, he
he
had an
was the
alibi.
only one with he had an alibi, but he didn't have proof of it.
Well, no, he had an alibi, but then they called to check on that alibi, and the guy was like, "No, he wasn't at my house."
Right,
Like what?
exactly. Bro was like, nah, don't put me in this. So it's like, okay, so your alibi is you was at a friend's house and then your friends talking about no, you weren't. And then apparently, word is that his own dad told the cops that he was down in Florida at the time. Not the case, because his cell phone was pinged in Nashville the day of. Now, here's the thing. You told all these lies about all of that. And then we dig deeper into your past and you are convicted of second degree murder back in 93 from a botched robbery. Bro, come on, man. Come on. We don't need a documentary. We
But
don't.
at the same time,
It
it's
answers
it's.
itself, bro.
But how do the cops, how do the detectives come to a conclusion in 4 days that everything is good? Like this is what happened. This is how do you? But then what's wild? Even when they was interrogating you in the room, they was being so aggressive with you,
Yeah,
and
like go
they were
ahead.
laid back. They were laid back with Neely. That and he offered them money.
Money.
Not only is it things are fishy with this Gilliam guy, but you got the other guy that found them, that called his homeboy, that came almost an hour away, and here trying to pay you. This is the I've
And
never
all
seen
they
this.
tell him was, nah, put your money away. Now, let me ask you something. What do you think would have happened if I had offered them money that day?
You would have been on the ground, buddy. They wouldn't even
Exactly.
care. They would have.
Bro, I would be under the jail by now. They would have done
What would
locked me
be?
up so fast, bro. Come on.
But what would be the what? Where are you getting at? Why are you? What are you paying these people for? Why are you trying to pay them? That's what I
That
don't
man
understand.
said,
Why?
I don't know how this works, but bro, you're trying to hush them. You are trying to hush them the same way you were trying to hush the whole situation by not calling them in the first place. He knows more than what he's putting onto. And the thing is I think the cops do too. I'm just being real. I think the cops do too. Because I think that money that they said, no, you can put away, I think they took it. I think they took it on the side off of camera. That's my opinion.
I don't know. I don't know about none of that. But
No, we know.
If this whole documentary, it would almost be like a kid wrote it. Like the whole, it's a real true thing, but the way all this stuff came about, Neely trying to pay the cops. What's the name not having an alibi? They don't have footage of the gun sale.
Right.
Well, I shouldn't have said a kid wrote it. I should have said a kid could have solved this crime. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good rebound. I was gonna say, yeah. I think they did a good job, man. But it's just I don't think that's what everybody tuned in for. The way that they put it.
Not talking about Netflix solving the crime, but I'm talking about the city of Nashville that concluded that with their 4-day investigation, that this is what happened. But right. Even like my niece would have asked to look further into this. You know what I mean? They literally, I don't know if people know, they literally, like, since that case has been shut, it haven't even been looked back at or anything.
They refuse to even think about opening it again. They don't care about how questionable the details are. They're like, no. And see, that makes me wonder. It's like, why you say no? Why? Because you know something and you know you're going to look dirty? If you do, maybe you're trying to hide because your own people had something to do with it and you're trying to cover that up. That's the way that I feel. Because I feel like any other case probably been opened up. Don't make no sense.
I still don't, like the people in the documentary, I still don't understand what happened and why did they have to call Gaddy to the condo first before then they called, then after he came to the condo, then they called the cops. What happened
and he called the cops, not Neely. So Neely discovered them, called Gaddy for what, permission? And then Gaddy called the cops almost an hour later, bro. Almost an hour later. Now, to put that into perspective, hopefully this podcast is going to be a little less than an hour. This episode right here. Now, I want anybody listening to this to think about how long you sat here and listened to this episode alone. We're about 35 minutes in right now. They kept it on the hush for almost an hour after discovering 2 dead bodies, one of which they knew very closely in their own condo or cat house, before picking the phone up and calling the police. That's not okay. It's not okay. That's a lot of time to change things around in there and make it look like it's something that it's not.
But my thing is, this is another thing I was thinking about with Gaddy, right? He's talking about he stayed quiet a long time because out of respect for the family and his wife and kids.
Yeah.
My question, like I said, I'm not pointing the finger or accusing anybody of doing anything. I question what was in this to not be complete. But my question to Gaddy is, if you got so much respect for his wife and kids, why come you played along with this idea of Steve? He even said it. Steve had an itch. Point. He had an itch, right? An itch for cheating on his wife. Mm-hmm. Why? And then he knew that he had a cat house. So if you respected his wife and kids that much,
where was that respect back then?
Yeah, where was the respect of you knowing that Steve had an itch and he had a cat house, right? Cheating on his wife and doing all that stuff to his family. So that's what I don't understand. Because guess what? If me and you, like, we friends right now. If I knew if you had a wife and I knew her on a personal level, like what's name, right? Right, I would not be going along with you in a cat house, and then you around here cheating on her. I would be like, hey, bro, like, you gotta stop, or I'm not even gonna be around. Out of respect for her, I'm not even gonna be a friend no more. Like, cause I don't even get down like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't even want your family to be broken up and I don't even want to be a part of it. So
Right.
that's my question to Gaddy. He respected all this time to be quiet, but I mean, where was it at back then? Because you knew what was going on. You was a close friend. You knew he was out
Good
here.
point. Good point.
Yeah, you knew he was out here doing these things. So
You was probably assisting. He was probably assisting.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just I don't know this documentary though. Like I said, they tried. I don't know if they was. I don't know who was the final person that closed everything up. But I feel like, and I think a lot of people out there, that's why we're doing this right now. I feel like that it's got to be another part to it somewhere. They made, I don't know if they're not telling us about it or if they took the rest of your interview and they're going to try to make the extended version. I don't know if they're trying to wait on the reviews to come in or what's going on, but they cannot
Well,
leave this documentary like that.
I mean, quick plug. I mean, that's what me and you are working on. We're working on that. We're gonna have something coming soon for it to follow up and answer a lot of these questions and go a little bit in more detail and in depth on the situation. So we got that on the way. I am writing a book about everything. I'm putting it all out there. Literally everything. My thorough opinion, all the details that I know leading up to, during, and after everything that happened. All of that. I'm laying it all on the table because not only is um it's something that needs to happen regardless to be able to further tell this story better than what it's been told so far, but it's also like it's kind of like a self-healing process too, which is what me and you kind of try to target on this podcast anyways, with men's mental health and the things that we dealt with in the past. This to me is therapeutic. It's finally me putting all of this out there in a way that's helping heal me from what happened in the past. So I'm finally doing that. I've been in close contact with Vincent Hill, though. He strongly agrees, and we've been trying to actually kind of work something out. He wants to do something
Which I
to
mean, they
follow up.
called, and they speaking of Vincent Hill, he was in there too at the almost at the tail end, and they tried
Yeah,
to. I did my little research on him too. They loved him in the police department.
they did.
He was a good cop. You know, he
He's
was
a
doing
good
his
dude.
thing. He
Yeah.
was getting cop of the month or whatever, and then all of a sudden
Uh-huh.
when he started to question this, now they're like, "Hey, you tripping? Like you don't know this is your first time. You never even did this before." And like they
And you
tried to
know
like
what?
discredit him. You know what I mean?
And you know what? To his defense, too, man, because I talked to Vincent Hill about this after the documentary came out, and this aggravated me because, Vincent Hill, he ran a private investigation about this and found out so much more than the actual Nashville Police Department either A, found out and never said anything about, or didn't find out themselves. But he went and he did the legwork to find out every key detail that has been provided to bring a lot of this questionable stuff to the light. And when he talks about it, if you don't notice, the detective or the lead detective that was on this case, as well as Robert Gaddy, tried to talk down upon his opinions, talk
Mm-hmm.
down upon the things that he's found, and act like that it's nothing but like conspiracies, or that he's a conspiracy theorist, which is ridiculous because it's like, all right, first off, the lead detective, right? The one that was real rude to me in that interrogation room, the one that was
Mm-hmm.
cutting me off with everything that I tried to give them, he turns around and he's trying to knock Vincent Hill for his opinion and the things that he said and his detective led work that he's done. But then turns right around, he's like, well, what case has he ever worked? What case he ever worked? The first one he ever worked was this one. That means he worked that case. And he's seen
Well,
enough personally to find a lot of questionable details about it. And he didn't like how it was handled, which is
right.
why he went further in on trying to find out the truth. And it's ironic to me that as soon as he starts exposing this and bringing a lot of it to the light, they want to knock him like he's some kind of whack job or conspiracy theorist. Now, see,
Well,
the
that's how they
ones
do everybody.
pay
Mm-hmm.
attention to the ones who are knocking that belief or that side of the story, especially with the anger that they displayed in their interviews, because it's usually the guys like that that are the ones trying to hide something.
But why wouldn't you question it? I mean, this dude was Steve McNair, like, went to the Super Bowl, he was loved around by everybody in the city, and they closed the case in 4 days. Like, I'm pretty sure it's people that don't even have that type of profile. They get a further investigation. You know what I
Yep.
mean? But the case was closed in 4 days, and they didn't want to if this was a cat house, right? I would have tried to go a little bit deeper into interviewing everybody that have been in this cat house. Not because it really could have been anybody that have been to this cat house. So
Mm-hmm.
who all have been into this cat house? Was
None
anybody
of
there
that.
that
And
night
then
earlier?
you interview the already convicted murderer from 93, 7 minutes, a total of 7 minutes without proof of his alibi or proof that he actually sold the gun. And then you close the case. They closed the case after one interview. You know how many times they interviewed me? Three times.
Really?
Was I ever convicted of murder? Nope. I wonder if he gave him if he gave him his phone like I did. I gave them my phone for 48 hours. They had my phone for 2 straight days. I had no way to contact anybody. But what I will tell you is that I had to call them numerous times for almost a month straight, telling them I was getting death threats left and right. People thought that I did it. They ain't care. Well, just send the information, and they wouldn't do nothing about it. And then I called them because I had a black SUV sitting outside my apartment when I would go outside at night, smoke a cigarette, just sitting there with the headlights on. Doing that 3 nights in a row before I had to finally run over there out of frustration, and then they drove off slowly. I tell the cops this, nothing. None of that. None of that's brought to the light. But the thing is, you interview the convicted murderer who had been convicted of murder from a botched robbery. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? Sounds a lot like this situation, but you interview him for 7 minutes, bro. 7. But you interview me, the guy on White Castle that you got it on camera until
Well, you know
almost 4
what?
o'clock in the morning, 3
It
times.
almost make you think, if you wasn't on camera that night, would you be locked up right now? Because
It's a terrifying
they
thought because I strongly feel that if I didn't have an alibi like he didn't, I would be in jail. I would absolutely be in jail if I wasn't on camera.
Right. They would have, because they said it was a murder suicide, but I think for some reason you would have still been tied to this some way if you wasn't on camera.
Yeah, and what about the whole fact, which I will further discuss this, in the next episode when we dive deeper into the situation. But the fact that somebody showed up at my door trying to break in when I had a girl over that night watching a movie, somebody tried to bust in my door, and when I brought this to the police's attention, they didn't luckily get in my door, but I yelled out to the girl and I told her to go get my bat, and that's when all that stopped. The commotion stopped and they ran off. And when I texted everybody on my phone asking who that was, I got no response back. The last person I texted was Jenny, but she responds, yeah. I said, was it you? Were you at my door? She said, yeah. And I thought that was real fishy because I'm like, why were you trying to bust in my door? It sounded like a grown man trying to get in my door. I showed the police these text messages between me and her that were real fishy. And all she responded with was, I don't want to talk about it. That was never explained to me and never answered ever again after I brought that to the police's attention. But on top of that, you know what they told me to basically end that conversation? Well, there's no way for us to verify yet if that was actually her texting you from her phone. And all they told me was they were going to further investigate it, but they never verified whether or not if she actually did. And what that tells me is they didn't truly know the time frame of actually when she passed. They were really trying to determine that. This is after the fact that they told everybody this happened in the early hours of the morning with fireworks going off and stuff. But if you didn't know whether or not if that was her texting me from her phone, And it sounded like a grown man trying to bust my door down in the middle of the night, a night or two prior.
You know,
Bro.
another thing that I'm a question is, I keep going back to this cat house thing because it's just too much to unpack. The cat house thing to me is just too much to unpack. And in
Right.
the documentary, they was talking about how Jenny went in one night and found condoms in the trash can. Right? That's what I saw. Right? Was
Yeah,
it?
I saw that too.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't see so much of this stuff. I don't know where. I think it was in that documentary. Okay, Jenny seen condoms in a trash can.
Right.
But this was a cat house. She knew it was a cat house. And they tried to say she found condoms in a trash can. And that's what made her go. That what made her realize that she wasn't the only one.
I didn't buy that story from the get-go. I don't know where that information came from about her finding condoms, because the fact of the matter is, I was back like on and off dating Jenny towards the last couple of weeks of her life. I was hanging out at her apartment while her roommate was up in Pennsylvania at the time, back with her family, when they were still kind of trying to figure out how they were going to go their separate ways as roommates. And I was in close communication with Jenny. Bro, Jenny knew. She had already told me. She knew. She found out that he wasn't being exclusive with her. And bro, see, this is another thing. This is such a vital detail, which we'll cover this later on. But she told me she was going to tell his wife. That right there, why that has never been discussed by anybody at all. As many times as I have told people this in the media, the police, through text messages, the proof of it in my text, where I'm trying to talk her out of ever telling her, because I knew if she would, that his wife would just be mad at her based on my own experiences seeing that in my family, myself. The thing is, bro, if she's telling me you knew Jenny's personality, bro, I believe she told his wife. I think she did, man. And this is such a huge detail.
But according to Gaddy, when she got that DUI, that she knew, he said she knew that would have made Steve mad. And they didn't talk for a couple of days after that. Until that, or whatever. That's what he said in the documentary. So, how would Steve get mad at her getting the DUI? She driving him around. She knew he knew she was drunk when they got in the car together. So
he just didn't want to be in the negative limelight, is what it was.
So is that what he's talking about?
He got to skate out.
So Gaddy said, okay, that Jenny may have made him mad because he got this attention on him now from being pulled over.
And then this whole narrative that a lot of, I see it mostly in the local media, but national media too. But they try to talk like she's some groupie, that she was just somebody that only affiliated herself with him because of the money, the lifestyle, and everything like that. But me and you both knew who she was. That girl was extremely independent. She didn't like taking handouts. And that was actually one thing that they found out in their discovery that McNair actually liked about her, quality about her, because she wouldn't take handouts from him. Just like with the Escalade that he co-signed for her to get, he paid nothing for that. She paid everything.
I think we mentioned this in another podcast, but we don't gotta say no names. But this is not the first millionaire she dated. You know what I mean? So she have already let go of a millionaire or two probably before then.
Right. Wasn't the first Titan.
Right. If she was this was the first millionaire that she's been with, and she's this crazy 19-year-old that needed money, then she probably wouldn't. I'm pretty sure if these real groupies out here, if they run into a millionaire, they're not going to let them go. You know what I mean? They're going to try to really attach themselves to it.
True.
So this wasn't the first millionaire that she dated.
No.
And I mean,
it's just an easy narrative. It's an easy take to explain what a lot of people would like to believe, just so they can just let it go and leave it alone. Kind of like what Jeff Fisher said at the end of the documentary, because a lot of people on that side that don't want to see Steve in that light, that don't want to look at the possibilities, that there's more to it. They don't care about the complications of it. They just want to leave it behind. it's easy. It's an easy narrative to take, you know, a 20-year-old girl and say, well, this was all about money and she didn't want to walk away from the lifestyle. And as soon as she figured out, you know, he didn't want nothing to do with her, then she lost all control and this happened. When the truth is, and I know because I was there, she broke it off with him. She broke it off with him as soon as she found out he was messing with multiple other girls. And when me and her were at the movies, which is why we all started talking again, anyways, when we were at the movies, he called her phone and was cussing her out over the phone and through text messages because he was mad that she was with me, which was mind blowing to me. I had to leave the theater, but you know, because I talked to you about this. Why would he be mad if he didn't want nothing to do with her? Think about that. There's so much more to this, bro. She wasn't a groupie. She wasn't a groupie. She wasn't just some 20-year-old girl who had stars in her eyes and then it just got ripped out from underneath her. No, bro. She was trying to figure things out and it was crazy, but she was handling it pretty well, to be honest.
And also, they said that, well, people that know him, that knew how he got around and everything, that he didn't take women out in public like that. He was actually taking her out in public, taking her on vacations, took her to...
Bro, he talked to her family and told her family that he wanted to marry her, bro. Meanwhile, he didn't have any intention on divorcing his wife. There was a lot of nonsense going on his side, bro. He was 36 years old. He should have known better. There's a lot of you should have known better moments going on in that scenario that the media wants to ignore because they want to keep a positive light on his image because of who he was to this city. And it's the same reason why Netflix probably took this direction with the documentary as well. But the truth of the matter is he had no business messing with a girl like that. He just didn't. But
yeah,
either way, man, I don't want to. I know we can just go on, and we plan to, but it's cutting close to where we were targeting to cut this off. So to cap everything off, sum up how you felt about the documentary and how you wished that it would have went, and then I'll give my opinion, and then we can exit on that note.
Well, I want to say that Netflix, they did good with trying to reach out to you and try to get that side of the story to know who you were and then know who she was. But luckily, they got all of that footage from you to hopefully come back and do it a second time. You know what I mean? Because I feel like the documentary could have been a lot better, and if they moved some stuff around and then told the story better. Like I said, they tried to make it out to be a true crime. It turned into basically a biography of this celebrity that just happened to get murdered.
Right.
That's how I felt. And it could have been better. And at the end, at the tail end, Jeff Fisher telling everybody just to let it go. I mean, like, what? You love this guy. I mean, how can you let go of something like this? It just took me. It took me like where it's kind of insane how everything happened, how everything played out, how all of this stuff just didn't get looked at the way it was supposed to have been looked at. From me, looking at all this new stuff that I haven't heard about.
Right.
And so hopefully Netflix got a plan to come back and revisit it and do the right,
maybe dig further into the case, and since they've covered what they wanted to about McNair and his life, maybe revisit this case and be more specific about that. That's kind of how I
feel. Go down that rabbit hole of really and go deep and go far. Like I was saying, they need to go deep into this cat house. Who all been in this cat house?
Mm-hmm.
Really, to me, from looking at the story, like I said, I'm not gonna I can't blame anybody. To me, it looked like it could have been anybody that did this. It could have been anybody, but how it looked, it don't look like it how they say it was. But I feel like it could have been anybody. It was so many people that had access to the house. You know what I mean?
So after watching it, would you say that you've reached the conclusion that, like, with the way that it was portrayed on the outside looking in, say you didn't know what you already knew, like, and you were just some bystander, somebody who'd never heard the story before, would you walk away from the documentary thinking, okay, that's tragic that that girl did that to him and herself? Or would you walk away saying, I don't think she did that. I don't think that's what happened.
I'm walking away saying I don't think that's what happened, and it could have been anybody. But what
Right.
happened?
Right. Okay.
Like
Well, for
from
me, go ahead, bro.
yeah,
I'll let
from
you
what
finish
I've
it.
seen in the documentary, it's like it could have been anybody. It just didn't. The stuff didn't. It didn't add up. It was too much time and too much. It was too much time, and then it was not enough time at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
so much. Well, see, like for me, I got back in contact with the producers and I talked to them. I thanked them for keeping to their word because there was some things that I did say in my interview that I had to think twice about, because even though I believed what I said thoroughly and still do, like, I have to think, because I got a family, I got kids, and the last thing I want is anything dangerous. I don't want to bring danger on anybody. But my belief. I've been very vocal about my belief in the past, very descriptive about what my belief is from beginning to end. And it's like I said, I kind of share the same standpoint as I see where there's a lot of people that are upset because of why they tuned in. But being a fan of Untold, I'm a huge fan of Untold. I love that documentary series. And I feel like that they knock them out of the park left and right. But the thing is I knew that, this was going to be pertaining to his life, his career, his legacy, his backstory, and everything like that. But I think what left a lot of people with a sour taste in their mouth was the way that, you got the title being The Murder of Air McNair. You're previewing it with a lot of the people who have never spoken before, at least all together as well. With this being the first time that I've ever spoke up publicly since '09, and then you don't include none of the details that are given from these people, you portray me like a Titans fan and somebody that was casually in Jenny's life when that wasn't the case. I was with her for over 4 years of my life, and I knew very intimate details about her and who she was. Run-ins that I had, not physically or in person, but run-ins that I absolutely had with McNair that went left untold, ironically enough. I feel like they did a great job sticking to what their series is about, but I really do believe that they dropped the ball with digging further into that case and at least releasing some of the details that you clearly had that's never really been heard before, especially with people that don't know anything about it, the younger generations and such. I agree with you. I really hope that they do follow up somehow and dive further into that case because it deserves it. But at the same time, I was in contact with the producers after it had been released, and the producer that I spoke to actually agreed. He said, I do believe that a follow up is a great idea. So I don't know what direction that they're going to go with it, but I really do hope that they do go in that direction. And I'm more than willing to be a part of it if they do. But as of right now, I know me and you have plans on moving forward. We got, a couple things in the works to further explain everything. Looking forward to that. And just like that, that podcast episode with Jason Whitlock and was it David Woody? What's his name?
Reed or
He's the
something.
local
Reed.
media. He used to be with the Titans with local media. I really liked that. I liked the fact that somebody, especially in the Nashville area, stepped up, spoke out, so it wouldn't just be us, saying this. But I share a lot of sentiment that they shared in theirs and agree with a lot of their take and everything. But at the same time, that I think that it's vital, even though I think, the guy that he was talking to that was sitting on a chair, he had a different take than what I got, a different belief than I got, and then what clearly Jason Whitlock had. I think that that's healthy to have somebody like that, because when you set someone like myself who knows intimate details that he don't know about that situation in a room with a person like that, you have the opportunity to shed light on that and open their eyes up to a lot of things that they didn't know about, because it felt like that he kind of had determined that idea in his mind just based on what the media had fed him
Well, that's
and
because
what they
a lot
said
of
to believe.
Yeah, and a lot of people I read the other day somebody said, why are you still entertaining this? Well, because you probably I feel like you haven't got the right closure. You know what I mean? It didn't. And then
Yeah,
on top of that, this was a part of your life. A lot of people out here that's watching this right now and watching our past stuff, y'all got to understand that this was a part of his life. So,
right.
and we didn't live it. We did not live it. We weren't in his shoes. We weren't in the interrogation room. We wasn't being blamed for murder. Like this is a really close to him. He's trying to get closure from this whole situation. So I
Right.
feel like that's why
And
you are
well,
doing what you're
for
doing.
that
You know what I mean?
person, for that person that had that take, that has that stance, that wonders why that I have, any type of energy to put towards this situation and continue to revisit it. For that person and anybody else that shares that same stance, the answer is simple. This was the most tragic thing that happened in my young life that I could have ever imagined, that I still can't fathom to this day. This just don't happen to any regular old person walking down the street in their lives. This was so unexpected, so tragic, so heartbreaking, and life shattering when this occurred that I didn't know how to process this for years. I didn't. I just kind of walked through life like a zombie, trying to navigate things as if it didn't happen without even facing it, more so just trying to bury it. But the thing is, I didn't revisit this. I shut up. I kept my mouth shut. I didn't talk about this because when I tried to, I got crucified for it. So I kept everything to myself, kept it all bottled up, and I tried to live a normal, quiet life and out of the spotlight. And I even changed my name from Keith to Joseph, going by my first name, to avoid any of it moving forward. But it's 15 years later. It's 15 years later. I am finally at a spot to where I feel like that this not only needs to be discussed, since they're continuously discussing it with or without me anyways, why not speak for myself now that I'm strong enough and comfortable enough to do it? And then on top of it, it's like I explained, by writing a book, it's therapeutic talking about these things. It helps me heal. So honestly, to that guy and anybody else like him, you don't like it, I don't care. Don't listen. Because this is my life and this is how I'm going to handle it moving forward and how I decide that I'm going to try and heal. And that's how I got to say about that. So,
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
note, before we get too riled up,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and say my goodbyes, and we'll see you on the flip side. The next episode should be coming as soon as we can get it down. I'm on the cleanup end of finishing up my book, a lot of revision that's got to go down and everything like that. Looking like I'm probably going to self-publish unless another option comes by to where I can actually get in cahoots with a publisher that might want to work with me or anything like that. It's good to get back on here with you, Joe. I'm
Yeah.
glad, man. Glad we're back in the
Yeah. Yeah.
booth. So,
Yeah. It's been a minute.
anything you want to say before we head out?
Oh no, man! Like I said, I wish you can get the opportunity again, probably by somebody. If Netflix don't revisit this, the Untold people don't revisit this and tell it the right way, I guess that you wish somebody reach out to you again, maybe, and you be able to tell it the right way, like the way it's supposed to
Right.
be told. You know what I
Well,
mean?
let it be known. I'm open. I'm wide
Hmm.
open and I'm ready to talk. I'm in the
Yeah,
mood. So
that's all I got.
hit me up. All right, man. See you on the
Yep.
next one.
All right.
Bye.
Peace.